You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your Security Plus certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. A risk register is the central repository where organizations capture and track all identified risks. Think of it as the ledger of risk management, much like a checkbook records financial transactions. Without it, risks may be discussed but quickly forgotten or handled inconsistently. The register provides a single source of truth, ensuring that risks are documented, assigned to accountable owners, and monitored over time. Each entry tells the story of a specific risk, where it came from, who is responsible, and what the plan is for addressing it. This structure allows organizations to avoid reactive firefighting and instead manage risks in a disciplined, transparent way. To make a risk register effective, certain minimum fields are essential. These include a unique identifier, risk ID for tracking, a clear title and description for context, an assigned owner, and values for likelihood, impact, and overall score. The status of each risk, whether open, in progress, or resolved, also needs to be captured. These fields ensure that each risk is both visible and actionable. For example, if a database vulnerability is recorded, its score reflects how dangerous it is, the owner shows who is responsible, and the status reveals how far along mitigation efforts have progressed. Without these basics, the register loses its purpose. The register should also reflect the life cycle of each risk. This means including columns for the date the risk was first identified, what mitigation actions are being taken, the target residual risk once controls are applied, and the cadence for reviews. By capturing these life cycle details, organizations can see whether risks are aging without progress or whether they are moving steadily toward closure. For instance, a risk logged 2 years ago with no updates signals a governance failure, whereas one with a clear timeline and regular review dates demonstrates maturity. Lifecycle tracking ensures risks are not just logged but actively managed. Linking controls and evidence to each risk entry deepens accountability and trust. A control is any safeguard meant to reduce risk, such as requiring multi-factor authentication or encrypting sensitive data. Evidence shows whether the control is actually working. For example, audit logs proving encryption is consistently applied. Without this linkage, risk registers risk becoming paperwork exercises, where risks appear to be managed but no one can prove it. By tying controls and evidence directly to risks, organizations make mitigation effectiveness traceable, enabling leaders and auditors to confirm that risks are not only acknowledged but also genuinely reduced. Risk owners play a central role in keeping the register alive and accurate. An owner is the person accountable for updating the entry, confirming progress, and attesting to the risk's current status. Ownership ensures that risks don't float without responsibility. For example, if the risk of phishing emails is assigned to the IT security director, that individual must ensure training, filtering tools, and response plans are in place. Owners also provide updates during governance reviews, keeping leadership informed. Without clearly assigned owners, risks may languish unattended, undermining the entire purpose of maintaining a structured register. To reflect progress, risks move through triage states that show their current standing. Typical states include new, when first recorded, assessed, once likelihood and impact are evaluated, in remediation, when mitigation is underway, accepted, if leadership decides the risk is tolerable, and closed when it has been resolved. These states provide transparency to all stakeholders. Imagine a dashboard where leaders can instantly see how many risks are actively being worked on versus how many are waiting for assessment. Triage states prevent ambiguity, ensuring everyone understands where each risk stands in its journey toward resolution. Key risk indicators, or KRIs, expand the register's usefulness by acting as early warning signals. Unlike lagging indicators that show when an incident has already happened, KRIs are designed to detect movement before risks fully materialize. A KRI might track the percentage of systems missing critical patches, the frequency of failed logins, or the volume of phishing emails blocked. When KRIs move outside normal ranges, they signal that a risk is becoming more likely or severe. This proactive approach turns the register from a static list into a predictive tool, allowing organizations to intervene before harm occurs. Selecting KRIs requires care. A useful KRI must be measurable, timely, supported by an accountable owner, and predictive of actual risk changes. For example, tracking, number of systems with expired antivirus licenses is measurable and timely, but if it does not correlate to real security incidents, it has limited predictive value. Instead, monitoring, percentage of internet-facing servers missing critical patches may provide a stronger signal of risk escalation. By choosing KRIs carefully, organizations avoid drowning in meaningless data and instead focus on signals that genuinely inform decision-making and prevention strategies. To make KRIs actionable, thresholds are established that define what counts as normal, warning, or critical. These thresholds are often visualized with green, amber, and red zones. For example, if fewer than 2% of servers lack critical patches, the KRI might be green. Between 2% and 10%, it shifts to amber, requiring attention. Above 10%, it goes red, triggering immediate escalation. Automation can be used to surface breaches by sending alerts to dashboards or generating tickets. These thresholds prevent debates about when to act and instead provide clear, predefined responses to emerging conditions. Integration points are where KRIs show their true value by connecting to broader governance processes. For instance, a KRI that turns red might automatically feed a dashboard reviewed by executives, trigger a risk committee review, or escalate directly to system owners for immediate action. Integration ensures the KRIs are not just numbers in a spreadsheet, but active drivers of governance. They create a feedback loop between monitoring and decision-making, ensuring that early signals flow directly into the mechanisms that allocate resources, approve remediation plans, or escalate risks to senior leadership. Data quality underpins the entire process. If asset inventories are inaccurate or telemetry comes from unreliable sources, KRIs become noisy and misleading. For example, if your server inventory mistakenly lists decommissioned machines as active, a KRI about patch compliance may flag issues that don't exist. Poor data leads to wasted effort, erodes trust, and can cause leadership to ignore otherwise useful signals. Ensuring canonical asset mapping and relying on authoritative data sources builds confidence that KRIs reflect reality. High-quality data transforms the register from a bureaucratic tool into a reliable compass for risk navigation. A simple starter exercise brings these concepts to life. Consider the risk of unpatched internet-facing servers. The risk entry includes a description of the vulnerability, an owner such as the IT infrastructure lead, a current score based on CVSS metrics, and one remediation action. Implement automated patch management for internet-exposed hosts. The associated KRI is % of internet-facing hosts with missing critical patches, with a red threshold set at greater than 10%. This one-row example shows how a register entry connects description, accountability, remediation, and monitoring into a coherent, actionable package. Practical exercises like this emphasize that risk registers are not abstract tables, but living tools. They translate discussions into structured records, make accountability visible, and provide mechanisms for follow-up. Adding a KRI ties each entry to a measurable signal, bridging the gap between documentation and operational monitoring. Even a single well-crafted row demonstrates how risk registers and KRIs combine to give organizations both a map of where they stand and a radar for where trouble might be approaching. This dual function makes them indispensable elements of mature risk management practices. By the end of Part 1, learners should appreciate the role of the risk register as the canonical record and KRIs as its predictive sensors. Together, they transform risk management from a static record-keeping exercise into a dynamic practice that combines accountability, monitoring, and action. A well-maintained register provides visibility into risks and their treatments, while KRIs highlight emerging trouble before it grows into an incident. With this foundation, Part 2 will explore advanced techniques for designing effective KRIs, embedding them into governance, and continuously improving their predictive power. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Designing key risk indicators requires thoughtful patterns that ensure they measure what matters. Common approaches include using trends, ratios, or simple counts. A trend KRI might track whether phishing attempts are increasing month by month, while a ratio could compare successful versus blocked logins. Counts are straightforward, such as the number of unpatched systems. Normalization and seasonal adjustment are sometimes necessary so that signals remain meaningful across different contexts. For instance, a spike in failed logins might be normal during a new employee onboarding cycle, but unusual at other times. Careful design ensures KRIs provide accurate and reliable warnings. Mapping KRIs back to business impact language is crucial for executive audiences. Technical signals like 10% of servers missing patches may not resonate unless linked to outcomes leaders care about. Instead, the signal should be expressed as, if this trend continues, core systems may face an outage that would cost an estimated $200,000 per day. This translation transforms raw metrics into compelling narratives. By framing KRIs in terms of financial loss, customer trust, or regulatory penalties, executives understand why the indicator matters and are more likely to act decisively when thresholds are breached. Automation greatly enhances the usefulness of KRIs by enabling continuous measurement. Instead of manually calculating patch levels or login failures, systems can ingest telemetry data directly from monitoring tools and compute KRIs in real time. For example, vulnerability management platforms can feed patch status directly into dashboards, while authentication logs can provide ongoing measures of failed login attempts. Automated KRIs reduce the lag between emerging risk conditions and detection, allowing organizations to respond faster. This also frees staff from repetitive tasks, letting them focus on interpreting the signals and planning responses rather than collecting the raw numbers. Clear escalation rules ensure that KRI breaches are acted upon appropriately. Not every signal requires the same level of response. For example, a red threshold on internet-facing servers missing patches may require immediate executive review, while a KRI showing a moderate increase in phishing emails may only need scheduled investigation by the security team. Escalation rules define which issues go directly to governance committees, which remain with operational staff, and which can be logged for trending. This structured approach prevents both overreaction to minor issues and underreaction to significant warning signs. Reporting cadence and audience tailoring are also critical. Security operations centers may need daily updates on certain KRIs, such as intrusion attempts, because they require immediate action. Operations managers may only need weekly summaries, while executives might prefer monthly reports that aggregate and contextualize the data. Tailoring frequency and presentation to the audience ensures the right people get the right information at the right time. Too much detail for executives can overwhelm them, while too little detail for operators can leave them unprepared. Matching cadence and content to audience makes reporting effective rather than burdensome. Linking risk register entries to treatment plans strengthens accountability. Each risk should not only describe the problem, but also connect to the specific steps being taken to mitigate it. Treatment plans include due dates, responsible parties, and evidence requirements for completion. For instance, if the register lists unsecured cloud storage buckets, the treatment plan may specify that the cloud engineering team must enable encryption and access logging within 30 days, with screenshots as evidence. This linkage ensures that risks do not remain abstract, but are tied directly to actionable tasks that can be verified. Periodic health checks of the register ensure it remains relevant and accurate. Over time, risks can become stale if no updates are provided, or entries may be left orphaned without assigned owners. Mitigations can also become overdue if no one verifies their completion. Health checks identify these issues, prompting cleanup and renewed accountability. For example, a quarterly audit might reveal risks marked in remediation for over a year without closure, signaling the need for escalation. These checks prevent the register from becoming cluttered with outdated or neglected items, maintaining its value as a live management tool. Deduplication and consolidation practices help streamline the register. Without them, organizations may accumulate dozens of similar entries that obscure the bigger picture. For example, multiple entries about weak password practices across different departments may all point to the same root cause. Consolidating them into a single, broader risk allows leadership to see the systemic issue and plan an enterprise-wide fix rather than treating each as an isolated problem. This reduces noise, clarifies priorities, and ensures that resources are applied efficiently to address the most fundamental drivers of risk. Balanced monitoring often requires combining both qualitative and quantitative KRIs. Quantitative indicators may track hard data like patch compliance percentages, while qualitative indicators can capture softer signals such as results from employee security awareness surveys. Together, they provide a fuller picture. For example, telemetry might show that phishing emails are being blocked effectively, but survey data could reveal that employees still feel unprepared to recognize them. Combining these perspectives allows for more nuanced decision-making, acknowledging that not all risks can be fully captured by raw numbers alone. Governance processes ensure the integrity of the register and KRIs. Owners must periodically attest that entries are accurate, while change logs record updates to risk status, treatment progress, or KRI definitions. Audit trails preserve the history of decisions, allowing regulators or internal reviewers to trace how risks were handled over time. For instance, if a risk was accepted rather than mitigated, the log should show who approved that decision and when. Governance makes the register defensible, turning it from an internal tool into a resource that can withstand scrutiny from auditors, regulators, or partners. Continuous improvement is a hallmark of effective risk management. Not every KRI will prove valuable. Some may fail to predict meaningful changes or may simply generate noise. Organizations should periodically retire weak indicators and introduce new ones based on emerging incidents or lessons learned. For example, after experiencing a data breach due to third-party access, a company may introduce a new KRI measuring vendor compliance with security policies. This iterative approach keeps the monitoring system sharp and relevant, ensuring it evolves alongside the organization's risk landscape. At the end of the day, the goal is to make risk management actionable rather than academic. A living risk register, paired with predictive KRIs, achieves this by ensuring risks are documented, owned, and actively monitored. When KRIs are instrumented, assigned to owners, and integrated into dashboards, they become part of the organization's nervous system, constantly sensing for trouble and prompting timely responses. This combination turns risk management into a dynamic practice that not only records past decisions, but actively shapes future security outcomes, keeping the organization resilient in the face of change. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.